They say the future is unwritten. They say we are the masters of our own fate. But what if your life was nothing more than a script, written by a hand you couldn't see? Welcome to the Echo Contact. I'm your narrator, and today we begin a journey into the cracks of reality. Sit back, turn down the lights, and for the next 10 minutes, I suggest you keep your phone where you can see it. You never know who might be typing. Episode 1, The Shattered Forecast. Aarav was a man who worshipped at the altar of the predictable. His life wasn't just organized, it was curated. He liked his coffee at exactly 175 degrees. He liked his spreadsheets to balance to the fourth decimal point. He liked the fact that if you dropped a pen, gravity, predictable, reliable gravity, would pull it to the floor every single time. To Aarav, mystery was just a lack of data. It was a Tuesday, a day so remarkably average it shouldn't have been capable of housing a miracle. At 10:02 a.m., Aarav was sitting in his minimalist apartment, the hum of his laptop the only sound in the room. His phone, resting face up on the mahogany desk, vibrated. It wasn't a call. It wasn't a message from a friend. The screen glowed, illuminating a string of numbers that didn't belong to any country code he recognized. The message was short, terse. At 2:14 p.m., the glass breaks. Aarav stared at it. He didn't feel a chill. He didn't feel a premonition. He felt annoyed. He was a data analyst. He dealt with spam bots and phishing scams every day. He deleted the message, muttered something about bored hackers, and went back to his work. But as the morning crawled toward the afternoon, a small, irrational seed began to itch in the back of his brain. 12 p.m., 1 p.m. The numbers 214 kept flashing behind his eyelids. Logic told him it was a prank. But logic also told him that a true scientist tests every hypothesis. By 1:45, Aarav found himself walking toward the Gilded Bean, a high-end coffee shop 3 blocks away. Why there? Because the shop was famous for its architecture, massive soaring panes of reinforced, double-tempered glass that looked out over the city square. If the glass was going to break, it would have to be something significant. He sat at a small bistro table, less than 2 feet from the window. He ordered a black coffee he didn't want. He pulled out his phone. 2:05 p.m. The cafe was a hive of mundane activity. A barista was steaming milk, the screech of the wand cutting through the air. 2 college students were arguing about a philosophy paper. An old man was reading a physical newspaper, the pages crinkling as he turned them. It was the peak of normalcy. 2:10 p.m. Aarav's palms began to sweat. This was the moment where he should have gotten up and left. He should have laughed, walked home, and forgotten the whole thing. But he stayed. He stared at the digital clock on his screen, watching the minutes flip. 2:12, 2:13. The world seemed to slow down. He looked at the glass. It was thick. It was sturdy. It had survived windstorms and heat waves. There was no way a random text message could command it to fail. 2:13 and 45 seconds. Aarav found himself counting his own heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. 55 seconds. 56, 57, 58, 59, 2:14. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but the sound of the espresso machine. Aarav started to smile. He felt a surge of triumph. Spam, he whispered to himself. Just a glitch in the crack. It wasn't a small sound. It was the sound of a bone snapping under a microscope, amplified 1,000 times. A single tiny point in the center of the massive window, right at Aarav's eye level, erupted. White lines raced across the surface like lightning trapped in a bottle. The sound that followed was a roar. The reinforced glass didn't just fall, it exploded inward, a tidal wave of crystal shards and diamond dust. The cafe erupted in screams. People dove under tables. The old man's newspaper was shredded by flying debris. Aarav didn't move. He sat perfectly still as the wind from the street rushed into the quiet cafe, smelling of exhaust and cold pavement. He was covered in fine, glittering dust, but not a single shard had cut him. He was the center of a storm he hadn't believed in. His phone, still sitting on the table amidst a pile of broken glass, vibrated. The same number. Aarav's breath came in ragged gasps. His fingers trembled so hard he almost dropped the device as he swiped it open. He expected an explanation. He expected an apology. Instead, he got a command. She's coming. Look up. Aarav didn't want to. Every instinct in his body told him to keep his eyes on the floor, to run out the door, to hide in the dark. But the text felt like a hook in his jaw, pulling his head back. Slowly, inch by inch, he tilted his head. He looked at the ceiling of the cafe. He looked at the shadows dancing in the rafters. And in the silence that followed the crash, he heard it. a soft, feminine hum, and the sound of a single footstep on the floorboards directly above his head. Aarav thought he was a man of logic. He thought he knew how the world worked. But logic is a fragile shield when the universe decides to strike. This was only the beginning. If you're ready to see how deep the loop goes, make sure you're subscribed and the bell is on. Because in this story, the next message is always just a heartbeat away. Sleep well, if you can. This is where the psychological weight starts to pull the viewer in. To reach the 10 to 12 minute mark, the narrator must use atmospheric pacing.